Particular people who are so decadent, but yet we take pride in following them. That doesn't make sense to any intelligent human being. So the Qur'an told the Prophet that no individual who has received guidance from Allah can call people to become his personal servants. Messengers and whatever they say that comes from God must be in synchrony, must be in total agreement with divine guidance. Today there are so many question marks over issues. Did the messenger of God actually say that? Did he actually teach that? How could he teach something that contradicts the divine text? This is not the messenger. This is people forcing words in the name of the messenger. Why? Because that's how you get credibility for your statements. And those who know the history and who are willing to look at the history will see that the Qur'an tells us that every messenger had this challenge. That whenever he set out to deliver the guidance of Allah, the satanic forces in society try to do what? Try to superimpose their ideas on his message. And this has been a challenge unabated from the very beginning of humankind. So the Qur'an tells you and me that every messenger is required to follow divine loftiness. If you and I follow the messenger, we will see no conflict with the books. If those who claim that they were followers of Jesus, who are called today Christians, if they had truly followed Jesus, there would have been a community of loftiness. If those who claim they follow Moses had truly followed him with divine guidance, there would have been a community of excellence, of enhancement to the human race. If those who claim they follow Muhammad and love him, and you know Muslims are fanatical in their love, they feel they love him, but they hardly know 5% of his message, because their love, in the communities they grow up in, love is emotional. When they hear his name, they kiss all over the place. When they hear his name, they say all kinds of slogans. They themselves don't fully understand what they're saying. Because true love requires compliance. True love requires compliance, requires support, requires following, requires emulation. And this is missing overall from the Muslim world. You will always have exceptions, and I hope you and I are striving to be the ones who are the exceptions. Because it's easy to say I love the Prophet, and it is easy when you hear his name to say a whole set of things that you think this is love. Although real love of the Prophet requires to accept his message, don't fight it, and give your life towards living it and growing it in your families, in your friends, and in your society, for which you and I know very well, because I live in Canada, there's very little efforts. There's very little efforts. Why? Because we have people who've been telling the Muslims, you don't even have to know the message of the Prophet, you can just read it in Arabic and you will get tons of blessings. And that is why you see people look for opportunities to get blessings. But they don't look for opportunities to change their life and resurrect it on the principles of the book that he brought. So what Allah told the Prophet, he says, وَلَكِنْ كُونُوا رَبَّانِيِّينَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تُعَلِّمُونَ الْكِتَابِ وَبِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَدْرُسُونَ. Everyone who received the guidance of Allah is supposed to be a Rabbani. A Rabbani comes from the word Rabb. And Lord and God do not adequately explain the depth of substance of this word. Rabbani has a lot to do with not only a vision, but a plan to make that vision a reality, and support, and care, and consideration. So when somebody is a Rabb, you want to see a human Rabb? At the human level, look at parents. Parents reflect the qualities of Rabb at their human level for their offspring. This is Rabb. Even before the child is born, the mother and father are so excited about the child. They are making all these preparations. When the child comes into this life, they don't know what to do for the child. So a Rabbani, in terms of divine guidance, is one who pursues divine guidance and therefore has a vision of loftiness for himself, his family, and society. It is not this cheap kind of things that has been popular over the Muslim world, as we say, بالعربية, لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع, that cannot do any good. That you get a whole set of people on Fridays especially in the Muslim world going to the Jum'ah, gossiping many of the time, most of the time, coming out with emptiness. You go through the Muslim countries. Just go. I have been in many of the Muslim countries, in many of their massive jama'ats and jami'ats, and there is shallowness. The Qur'an is missing. What is missing? It's the Qur'an. Go to the Muslim universities. In any part of the Muslim world, the most glaring absent is the Qur'an. It is not taught for what it is. It is taught by what they think is outside of it. It's strange that these people do not think. Yet they say, this is the book of God. If this Qur'an is Kitab Allah, then does it have the ability to explain itself? That kind of logic we don't know. That kind of logic we are not prepared to take. Why? Because up here is jammed with what we have brought from our cultural backgrounds. But this is a challenge to you and me to wake up. Otherwise the results of our lives and our families and our communities, with all the towering minarets you see in Canada, and the massive domes you see in Canada, and the very expensive masajids in Canada, will not produce much of a better results than what we have left back home in our own lovely, dear and great Muslim countries. So the Qur'an demands of you and me to understand that God is all about loftiness. Messengers of God don't teach a different message other than loftiness. And it is not possible for God to send a messenger and then ask him to teach the people, you know what? Don't talk too much about God, talk about me. In conclusion, I'll give you a verse of the Qur'an. It is found in Bani Israel 17. And the verse tells us, وَإِذَا ذَكَرْتَ رَبَّكَ وَحْدَهُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَلَّوْا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِهِمْ نُفُورًا. Anytime you talk about Allah and Allah alone, from the Qur'an they get mad. Why? The human communities were always accustomed to dilute the uniqueness and the unicity of Allah and the sovereignty of Allah. To such a point, even though they don't realize that the messengers of Allah were the best students of Allah, were taught by Allah, they obeyed Allah the best, and based on that guidance, which they never stepped away from, they were the best examples.